He's a veteran film producer and Paulist Productions board member. After producing more than 25 films, he's making his directorial debut as co-director, producer, and screenwriter of a new documentary, Fighting Spirit, a combat chaplain's journey. Please welcome to the program Rich Hull. And also with us, nephew of Father Emil Kapaun, Ray Emil Kapaun. Thank you both for being here. Rich, I'm going to start with you. Together with Paulist Productions, the U.S. Army Chaplain Corps and executive producer Chris Pratt came together to make this documentary, Fighting Spirit. Give me a sense of what compelled you to tell these stories of combat chaplains, and how did Chris Pratt get involved?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us on today and giving us the opportunity to talk about this movie. It's been a 4-year journey for me, and I guess the word journey is in the title of the film, and so I took my own journey here. And I was brought in because I had made a documentary years ago with Halle Berry about Black soldiers that had fought in all the U.S. wars we ever had, called For Love of Liberty, the story of America's Black Patriots. And Halle and I won the NAACP Image Award and some other awards. And so Paulist brought me in because they wanted to make a documentary, a story about military chaplains, and they thought maybe I would have a bit of trust built up with the military, and that ultimately led to the military becoming involved, which you want to have happen on a movie like this. And so as I got to know the subject matter, I really fell in love with it and ultimately decided I wanted to direct it. And from there, we were, fortunate enough to get in contact with a bunch of combat chaplains, both active duty and former. I had remembered a story that I had seen in the movie Black Hawk Down about a former Army Ranger turned combat chaplain named Jeff Struecker, and he agreed to be our partner in this. Chris Pratt agreed to be our partner, which checks a lot of boxes for Chris, and the Army Chaplain Corps, as you mentioned, agreed to our partner. People just kept saying yes and yes and yes. It created this groundswell, and now the journey kind of comes to an end when the movie comes out for Veterans Day this weekend in theaters.
I want to give folks a sense of what they'll be seeing here. Here's a bit of the trailer for Fighting Spirit. Watch.
For over 200 years, combat chaplains have provided the bedrock of care for every branch of the military.
Our chaplains are non-combatants. They go into a battle space without a weapon. You have to be fearless to do that.
That's me, comforting the injured soldier when I was a chaplain. But after I left the military, I struggled to make sense of my experiences when I got home.
Justin was definitely a different person when he got back.
And then, something completely unexpected happened.
Long-lost Army chaplain has finally been identified 70 years after his death.
Chaplain Emil Kapaun was one of the most famous, most heroic combat chaplains in history. As I had been there for so many others on the battlefield, I knew that I should be there when Chaplain Kapaun was laid to rest. And maybe it would help me sort through why I was feeling so lost. As I set off, I felt I was being led by the inspiring stories of combat chaplains of all faiths who came before me.
Chaplain Litke carried over 20 men for evacuation.
The 4 chaplains from the Dorchester, that is one of the greatest examples of chaplaincy.
I came to this moment where I realized it's time for you to stop preparing warriors to meet the enemy and start preparing them to meet eternity.
Being a chaplain is a quiet profession of service, and chaplains rarely make headlines. So I was shocked when I realized that people from all over the United States came together in the spirit of Emil Kapaun to honor him, and to honor the service of every one of us who has ever accepted this calling.
After 70 years, the remains of U.S. Army combat chaplain Father Emil Kapaun were identified and brought back to the U.S. He's among 419 U.S. military chaplain heroes who have given their service, their lives in service to the nation. John Paul II declared him a servant of God in 1993, and his cause for sainthood continues. Ray Kapaun, Father Kapaun, of course, was your uncle. Now, I know you never knew him, but you certainly heard the stories told to you by your grandmother. Give me a sense of where his cause is today.
As of right now, yes, he's still classified as servant of God. The next step up would be venerable status, and that was going to be voted on, and then COVID hit, And of course, like everything else, everything got put into lockdown. And that stopped. As of right now, it should be, the vote should happen either at the end of this year or the first part of next year. The feeling that we're getting from everybody is they're pretty sure that will probably go through, which will then start moving things forward as far as more investigation on the Vatican side into the miracles. It just gives it a step closer to possible sainthood. I mean, I tell everybody he's a saint as far as I'm concerned. It's just waiting on a signature on a piece of paper.
Rich, what's been the response to the film? And what are you hearing from audiences and other veterans?
You know, it's really been powerful for me as a filmmaker, because when the lights come up in these theaters and you look around the room, you see a lot of emotion. And I think for military audiences, I think a lot of that emotion comes from, at first, kind of tapping into their own experience in the military. And by the end of the movie, they're tears of joy, because I think what they've said to me is, well, this gives voice to my experience in a way that I probably couldn't have on my own. And it helps my friends, my family, my community understand what I really went through. I think for faith-based audiences, it's a little bit different. I think it's really a unique situation where people truly get to live their faith. I mean, chaplains come from a particular faith, and all faiths are represented in the chaplain corps. But when you're on the front lines as a combat chaplain and there's bullets whizzing by your head, you're dealing with very life and death issues that are very existential, and you're dealing with soldiers of all faiths and no faiths. And so you really have to find a way to put your faith into practice in a way that other people can relate to.
Well, Rich, Ray, thank you for being here. We will leave it there, and you can find out more about Fighting Spirit, a combat chaplain's journey, and how you can see it. Visit fightingspiritfilm.com. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.